Are your 30s your best years?
Yeah, it almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? So I'm 38, turning 39 this year. I think for many aspects of my life, my 30s have been, definitely a lot better than my 20s. But it's tricky. It's tricky to answer that question without sort of looking at the different aspects of my life, whether it's relationships, my career, or how I just generally feel in terms of physical health. In your 20s, you can go through a lot, different experiences, and feel like you're invincible and you're learning constantly. You're obviously sort of expanding your horizons. And then in your 30s, you're recalibrating. What you're doing is you're taking stock of everything that's happened to you thus far, and you recognize some of the patterns, the repeated behaviors, and you're able to go, oh, okay, so this is something that I like. What I don't like, the people that are in my life, I appreciate and I love and respect, but then you also filter out the people that you don't want in your life as well. Your 30s in general are a time where you get to reassess and also be a bit more confident in saying, this is who I am as a person. This is what I vibe with. Also be a bit clearer about the direction that you're going in.
Yeah.
Get rid of all of the BS as well.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I'm 33, so I'm very new to my 30s, but I agree in the sense where your 20s is exploration and then your 30s are consolidation. But then at the same time, I feel like everyone kept saying like, it's your best years. And I get it. Why? Because it's like, yeah, you're pretty settled in your career. You have money. You know what you want now.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of like get rid of the BS, like you said. But then I feel like there's some real things that happen also in your 30s that's not as glamorous. Very real things that happen. But maybe that adds to why your 30s are so great. But I do think like relationships really change. Like you're saying, your health, responsibilities even. And the reality of like, oh, you're not so young anymore.
Yeah. I still think that had I been in my 20s, I don't think I would have had the courage to do half the things that I'm doing now. Even though your 20s are the years of exploration and broadening your horizons, like as I said earlier, it's also a time where you don't know like what's going to happen. So the excitement is there. In your 30s, you can anticipate certain things, whether something's going to be a waste of time better than you did in your 20s. You know whether what you're doing is an extension of your trauma or the bad habits of your past creeping in. And you're able to also take that as an opportunity to go, okay, no, I want to do things differently this time. I've been able to go, okay, no, this is what I want for my life now, and be bold about pursuing that and unapologetic as well. I think that is the best part about it, of being in your 30s, because you're now like driving with a bit more force and purpose than you have ever before. That's why it feels like the golden years. That's why it feels like, okay, like you're actually building now. If your 20s were about experience, just dabbling here and there and trying to figure things out, your 30s are more about, okay, now I know what I like, what I don't like, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to stop me.
Nothing's going to stop John.
Because it's like, if you've already, mustered up enough courage to take that leap and take those steps, then what's holding you back, really? Because if you've overcome the fear of,
Yeah. I mean, just to confirm even like the points that you're saying of like, you have more clarity on life decision making. I find that so fascinating that you said that, because the new like research that came out about brain development stages, it literally says your brain enters adulthood at 33 and it ranges to 66. But then your early 30s is literally when decision-making and long-term planning and impulse control like begins to like solidify. Everything that you're saying it's just in line with brain development.
Totally. It's almost like you might want to think that you're like the exception to the norm. I'll be the first to admit that in my 30s, like, I think it's not that easy to obviously keep up in a physical sense.
Yeah.
I need my rest now. I need my sleep. I choose not to party all night and stay up all night and do all-nighters, because you need to conserve your energy, because you're so much more focused now. In order to actually pursue all the things that you want, you've only got a certain amount of energy reserves, and you need to use it wisely.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, because our energy begins to decline. But I also think it's like energy, also time. This is also where like you feel the relational shifts in your 30s is timing, like scheduling. I don't know about you, but I have to like schedule out seeing my friends weeks in advance, even some of them months in advance. And so then it starts really like dwindling. And then you're like, okay, I have to really be very mindful of who I'm seeing, how often, because I don't have enough time. And then also the energy portion of I can't go as long as I used to. So you're very like conscious of that. 20s was like spontaneity, right? Hit up your friends whenever you want, call them at like midnight and be like, do you want to go get tacos? You drive all the way to like San Diego. But now 30s, you're like, you can't do that. You hit up your friend at like midnight, they're gonna be like, you're crazy, go to bed.
No, you would never even call your friend at midnight. Like, that's just not a thing, right?
No. And then I think there is even a stat about that of your 30s. That's when a lot of friendships decline. Because of these factors, different life stages, time scheduling conflicts. You don't want to party while your other friends still want to party. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to hang with you anymore. I literally saw a graph, which there's conflicting opinions and research about it. But then they say the U shape of happiness, like in your ages. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I have.
I'm like, wait, that could kind of be true. Your 20s is like when, say, you're quote unquote happiest, and then starts to decline slightly in your 30s, and the 40s, that's when your midlife crisis happens, and then like it goes back up. I don't know. I kind of agree with it because there's some real life stuff that happens also in your 30s of like your parents are aging. You're hearing about more deaths, divorces, health issues coming up. At the same time of everything that you're saying, your identity is like becoming more solidified, focus is becoming more solidified, but at the same time, all these external factors are starting to kind of like potentially crumble. Feels like maybe it's crumbling, and I think that's what I'm dealing with right now is the tension. And I think that's what led to my burnout, because I was like, whoa, a lot just came at me at once. I know I have a sense of purpose. I know what I want in life, but then everything outside and around me is like just kind of like falling apart or like contributing to that. And I didn't know how to like handle that well. So for me, I'm like, 30s is hard.
Yeah. If I'm thinking back to my early 30s, that's when I was going through a bit of a crisis myself. My therapist used to tell me that I'm just going through a midlife crisis early. The beginning of my 30s were very chaotic because everything I built up or like I believed in up until that point was being questioned and put to the test. After that, my sort of mid-30s, everything started to fall into place a lot better. Sure, there's always going to be that factor of like, you're going to get older and you're going to feel it. And the people around you are experiencing health issues and life issues. People start to sort of trend in different directions, which is daunting in a way, because it's like, hey, like, no one really prepared me for this. But at the same time, we adjust very quickly. So we adapt. And after that initial sort of adjusting, you go through another phase of a rebirth. I'm so much more comfortable with who I am as a person. It might not be what I thought that I would look like, but I think you embrace it. You learn to go, okay, I really love this person that I've become. And that whole thing about like loving yourself, prioritizing yourself and setting clear boundaries and making sure that you're focused on wellness and nurturing yourself. All of that starts to make sense, and you're able to put that to practice. How to live a healthy life as you get older. What habits are you going to build into your daily routine? I saw an Instagram reel that said, the habits that you sort of create in terms of your lifestyle between the ages of 37 and 43 are the ones that will carry through to the rest of your life and will have the most impact in your sort of well-being. And I do believe that to a certain degree. You know, I'm 38 and I thought I dealt with all of my issues early on. I thought I sorted through all of that during therapy and in my early 30s when I was going through a bit of a crisis. But lo and behold, I'm still doing it. That's the beauty of also learning as you go and realizing that life lessons don't end at a certain point.
Yeah.
They just keep going.
Yes.
And it's, you know, about how you navigate and work through that. It just becomes easier as you get older.
I agree. Yeah. And I feel like you give yourself more grace as well. Your 20s are like, when you start realizing and noticing the areas where you're messed up, you're like, is it gonna end? When am I going to finally like be my most complete self? And your 30s, you're like, no, this is just part of life. Continual working on yourself, and it's okay that there might not be an end to it.
Yeah. You have so much like gusto and energy, and like even the look in your eyes are different when you're in your 20s because there's so much like hope and ambition. You think you can do so much and be a proponent for change. Not that dream has faded too much, but I think the realization that maybe not everything has to be at warp speed. Not everything has to happen at a particular time and by a certain age. You don't push yourself like to impossible sort of lengths to prove to yourself that you're of value or you're worthy or, you know, like you can do it.
Yeah.
I already know that I can. I've done it before. It's not a matter of can I do it? It's a matter of how I want to get there. Really appreciating the journey along the way. I never thought I'd say that because I've always been so goal oriented.
Yeah.
I always wanted to rush through to get to my goals as fast as possible. But life doesn't work that way, does it?
No. For most of us, no. No, I like what you're saying that like 20s is proving yourself and then your 30s is accepting yourself. You accept your own boundaries, you accept your capabilities, you accept, you know, your environments and potential pathways that are before you. Maybe that's where a lot of more like peace and identity solidification happens because you start accepting everything that's happening around you instead of fighting it or trying to prove things wrong constantly. I've accepted the things before me and I'm gonna harness that to then move forward more efficiently, more strategically, more smart.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, we accept the fact that we're all just trying our very best.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's also accepting that things are more outside our control, outside of our control than we think. Once you realize that a lot of things that happen to you in life by circumstance, coincidence, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, outside of your control, the more comfortable you become with the things that are held towards you. Because you're like, okay, well, this is another thing that's happened. I've been through, you know, shit before. I've been through the slinger before. And I know how to deal with this. I know how to move forward. And I know how I'm going to react emotionally, how I'm going to process it, how I'm going to pick myself up again, and how I'm going to keep going. Rinse and repeat. Like, what else can you do?
Yeah. I agree with that. You know how you'll react to things. So there's also more peace when it comes to that. But I will say there are also new circumstances and new situations that do come up in your 30s that you haven't probably dealt with prior. For instance, are you going to get married or you're not going to get married? Are you going to have kids or you're not going to have kids? Am I going to be a homeowner or am I not going to be a homeowner? I feel like in your 30s, those are like the real questions that really come in. If you're not already married, if you're not already, you know, like having kids, like your 30s, if you don't have those yet, like it's time to lock down and like make a decision, at least for women, if we want to have kids.
But is it a decision though? Like I almost feel just because you decide that you want to get married, it's not going to happen like straight away.
Yeah,
right?
But like in your mind, like coming to terms with it, like am I going to pursue that and make time for that in my life?
Sure. That too, I mean, changes.
Yeah.
As time passes, obviously,
Yeah.
the expectation, the average age of people getting married
Yeah.
now is a lot older than it
Yes,
was a few
exactly.
decades ago.
Exactly.
Less people are having kids as well. There's been so much societal change.
Mhm.
There's been shifts in
Mhm.
attitudes towards marriage. Even
Mhm.
I do wonder whether or not people like are finding the same sense of urgency
Mm.
asking those questions. I feel like maybe it's more a matter of if it happens, it will happen for me, but I'm not going to be devastated if it doesn't.
Yeah, maybe it depends like what circles you go in. I know at least from a female perspective, having friends that want kids, but aren't married yet, aren't even dating yet. So it's like pressure of like, if I want to have kids at
Sure.
a certain, biological time frame, and if I want to give birth naturally and all that stuff, then I really don't have a lot of time, or like say like you are trying, it's not happening. Do I want to give up trying and adopt? Like there might be a little bit more pressure if like you're in this side of the camp. Maybe it is different if you don't have that biological clock ticking.
Yeah. I'm not going to speak to that. I fair. That's not my territory. Yeah, and obviously for guys, it's a lot easier to not have those questions looming and constantly there. I have a lot of friends who are married with kids as well. I also have a lot of friends who are single and happily single without kids. Sometimes we talk about that, about whether or not that is a priority in our lives. And it changes, but again, it's sure, I'm sure it's different for women. What I can say about relationships in general, though, you do start noticing that relationships become or are a reflection of how you see yourself and who you are as a person. So the more complete and whole and healthy you are as an individual, that also reflects in the relationships that you have.
For sure.
And whether it's friendships or, intimate relationships, so long as you're focusing on being the best version of yourself, making sure that you're addressing all of your demons and you're also content and fulfilled as a person, you've learned from your past relationships where your shortcomings are and you've learned from it. You become better prepared to be in healthy relationships.
I agree.
Maybe in this day and age, it's easier for us to become healthy people because we've got more tools,
I agree. Yeah.
self-help tools to help us get there.
Yeah, and so I like how this is becoming a relational relationship talk. But then therefore the expectation for a healthy relationship has gone high. Like all my girlfriends expect a very healthy guy because you have no excuses because there's so many resources now.
True.
So it's like,
Yeah.
You can't hide anymore.
Yeah,
But
that's so true.
Yeah.
You need to be able to tick a lot of boxes.
I do think that is right. Of like, there are bigger life decisions in your 30s, but then you're more confident in who you are. I think the verdict is you're in a healthier, more confident place, usually in your 30s, to be able to tackle the new challenges that do come.
Agreed.